Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and through you to the members. I rise obviously in support of the further amendment, and I say that with all due respect to the gentleman from North Andover, the gentleman from Grafton, the gentlelady from Taunton, and others who have weighed in on this issue over the course of the past couple of years. This public assistance benefit topic deals, as we all know, with the poorest and most underprivileged people in our Commonwealth. And I would like to just put some context around the type of people who are eligible for these benefits. I would like to talk about the substantial legislative changes that we have implemented here in this body and signed by our governor over the course of the past 3 years, and also try to at least touch upon some of the many unanswered questions that remain today that are good cause for having a cost-benefit analysis and further study on this topic before we go forward with some of the suggestions in the underlying amendment. So let's just start with what these programs are that we're all focused on. There are 3 issues that we are talking about and have been talking about for the past couple of years. The first is the SNAP program, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, commonly referred to as food stamps. We have discussed in this chamber over the past couple of years the problem related to trafficking of SNAP benefits. That is not necessarily the topic of focus of the underlying amendment, so I'm going to set it aside for now only to say that if it is conflated, as it has been in the past, with cash assistance benefits related to the Temporary Assistance to Families with Dependent Children program, then I will seek to clarify further why these are separate programs. SNAP, of course, run by the United States Department of Agriculture. It is a federally funded program implemented at the state level. TAFDC is, as many of you know, both a state and federal program implemented by the state and overseen largely by the state. We're talking about 52,000 very poor families here in the Commonwealth who are eligible to receive TAFDC. And in addition, we are talking about a program called Emergency Assistance to Elderly, Disabled, and Children, EAEDC, another 22,000 families. People who are over 65, people who are taking care of the disabled in their home, people with children who need daily care. These are not privileged members of our society. We need to keep that in mind and in proper context and perspective as we address these very important issues. So when we talk about the third issue here that we are addressing, we've got SNAP and trafficking, we've got misuse of, alleged misuse, I should say, of cash assistance program, primarily through TAFDC. But as we think about those elderly and those disabled people and those children, do we really want to focus on misuse of those cash assistance benefits when these are folks who, for all intents and purposes, do not see a path out of the impoverished circumstances that they live in? They are disabled. That is not going to change. They are elderly. They are not getting any younger. They are children and do not have control over their own destiny, nor can they go out and get income on their own. So let's try to keep that in perspective. There are families that we are talking about here with TAFDC who are making below $1,000 a day. Let's just put that in context, folks. That's, $1,000 a month. That is less than $12,000 a year. And when you add up both the SNAP benefits value, which is just food assistance, and we add up the TAFDC assistance, you're talking another $600 a month, another $7,200 a year, and guess what? These extraordinarily privileged people are now living on something akin to $17,000 a year or $19,000 a year, which keeps them, quite frankly, for a family of 3, which is a typical family on TAFDC, an unwed mother or a mother whose husband or the father of the two kids that she's taking care of has split the household. We are talking about people who are living under the definition of the federal poverty level. So we are not even affording these folks the kind of benefits and the kind of opportunities to get work and get themselves out of poverty. We are giving them the absolute bare minimum so that they can put food on their plates, keep shelter over their heads, and have some shirts and clothes and pants on their bodies. The absolute basics. Let's keep that in mind as we are talking about this program. And let's also remember that the folks on TAFDC that we're talking about are on temporary assistance. The folks who are eligible to work or get an education so that they can get the kind of training to get work are only eligible for these benefits temporarily, 24 months out of a 5-month span, a 5-year span, I'm sorry. This is not a permanent welfare program. Let's get rid of that perception. And as I mentioned earlier, these folks are either caring for the disabled, they are over 65 often, they are participating in the Mass Rehab Commission programs because they are blind or deaf or have other mental or physical disabilities. We heard from the gentlelady from Revere the example, a tangible example of someone who has received TAFDC benefits in the past. Here's another one. A mother in Lawrence with a young child. She's working at a part-time job because she can't afford to have a full-time job because she can't afford child care. She's waiting for a child care subsidy and a benefit, but you know what? She's in line along with 25,000 other young women who are working, who have young children, who cannot get child care for their children. So she's forced to make a total of $700 a month. And her rent happens to be $750 a month. So when we talk or people propose about a cashless benefits system for SNAP or for TAFDC, or they want to limit the amount of cash that people can have access to after rent is paid and after those utilities are paid, and this poor woman doesn't even have a dime or 2 nickels to rub together after paying her rent on her part-time job, well then what is left for her to do? Ladies and gentlemen, I would also like to take a moment to focus on the legislative changes that we have implemented over the course of the past couple of years. In 2011, the governor signed into law a prohibition on using cash benefits for lottery tickets, tobacco, and alcohol, in part in response to work that we did in this chamber. Last year, we extended and expanded that list of prohibited items, and we prohibited retail locations where cash assistance could be used. Let's look again at that list. It is very relevant because it speaks to all the great work that we have done in the past. They cannot use their cash assistance benefits at liquor stores, at casinos, at adult-oriented entertainment establishments, at firearm dealers and ammunition dealers, at tattoo parlors, manicure shops, rent-to-own stores, jewelry stores, or on cruise ships. They cannot buy alcohol, tobacco, lottery. They cannot gamble. They cannot buy pornography, firearms. They cannot buy vacation services, tattoos, jewelry, and court-ordered fees. But they do need cash, indeed, to be able to get to work if they work a part-time job. They do need cash, potentially, to take a cab for their sick child, like my mother did or tried to do many, many years ago, but didn't have a quarter to her name. And when she asked 3 or 4 neighbors whether they could help her out because little Tommy was so sick that she didn't know what to do with him, even though she was a registered nurse and my father was on a 36-hour work shift and couldn't come home, And Mom didn't know what to do. She was in tears. And on the fourth neighbor that she asked for, the neighbor said, "How much money do you need?" And my mother said, "I need to get my son to a hospital. I need subway fare." And the neighbor gave her a $5 bill, and my mother broke down in tears because she had not seen a $5 bill in 3 months. These are the kinds of situations that people here in Massachusetts are facing every day. The kinds of folks that are receiving TAFDC benefits, the kinds of folks who want to get out of poverty, the kind of folks who believe in the good work ethic and the American spirit that all of us believe in and want to encourage. These are the kind of folks that need our help. They don't need a hand out, they want a hand up. They want to grab onto that bottom rung of the middle class ladder and pull themselves up. That's what these programs are about. Now, there are many unanswered questions with regard to the underlying amendment and why we need a study. How will we enforce the language in the underlying amendment? How much will this enforcement cost? What burden is it placing on retailers who would be forced under this underlying amendment to purchase sophisticated computer equipment that the small mom-and-pop shops do not own currently, that they cannot perhaps afford, that the Retailers Association of Massachusetts finds particularly burdensome and is one of the reasons why they oppose this underlying amendment, sensing that they will put small businesses out of work and out of business and lead to further unemployment. Is that what we want here, folks, during this financial crisis that we are living through? We don't know the answers to this question, and so let us slow down and do a cost-benefit analysis. And what monetary benefit are we talking about in terms of helping taxpayers by eliminating the misuse of these funds? Well, let's go to that Cashless Commission report and the Ripples Group and look at what they found in terms of inappropriate spending of cash assistance benefits. What did they find? They found out that in cash assistance transactions, purchases of daily living needs, food, clothing, and shelter, that in 99.6% of those transactions, the purchases were completely appropriate. They were purchased at the right kinds of retail outlets, not the ones I listed that we prohibited last year. And in 99.8% of the dollars that were spent, of that $415 million that was referenced earlier, 99.8% were appropriate purchases. They were not frivolous. They were not tattoos. They were not jewelry. They were not unnecessary items. This is what that report said. So when we think about what the potential savings is in terms of the wasted money, in terms of cash assistance benefits, we're not talking about a lot. We're talking about $800,000 potentially out of a $415 million program. Well, we have auditors at DTA, and we have eligibility determination requirements that are going to cut down on some of that, and we have various enforcement activities that are being put in place as we speak by the new DTA commissioner in order to address this extremely small misuse of cash assistance benefits. So, there are unanswered questions in terms of how much this would cost retailers to implement, what the benefits might be for taxpayers, what the cost of enforcement might be, what the cost of implementation might be by DTA. That's why I offer this further amendment. And Mr. Speaker, I ask that my colleagues support this amendment, and I thank you for the opportunity.